Who missed it. So thank you so much for joining. My name is Sarah Lang. I work for the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. Since we do have some out-of-state people, I'll just expand a little bit on that. Vermont has 12 regional development corporations that essentially do the boots on the ground economic development and workforce development for the state. And so Brattleboro Development covers southeastern Vermont. So essentially Windham County plus 4 towns. I run a program called the Southern Vermont Economy Project. It is funded by USDA Rural Development, and it is the purpose of it is to provide capacity building for our partners. And Knowledge Bites is one of those series that we run. And today we are talking about using market data to guide rural economic development. And just like I was saying earlier, SVEP provides webinars, trainings, technical assistance, helping to advance local economic and community development projects. And if you want to learn more about that, this is the webpage. So today we have Alex and Donna. Alex is with Camoin 310 and Donna is with TI Alliance. And I'm going to let them go more in depth and start. If you have questions for them, feel free to just type it into the chat. And if it's relevant to what we're talking about at the moment, I'll sort of interrupt them and have you ask your question. So Alex and Donna, take it away. Thanks for joining us. Okay, thanks, Sarah. So I got the screen up. Are we good on the slides? You can see them? Okay, yep. Great. Let me make them full size. All right, so like Sarah said, I'm Alex Tranmer from Camoin 310, and I'm here with Donna Wotton from the Ticonderoga Revitalization Alliance. Just a little bit about Camoin. We are based in Saratoga Springs, New York, although we have decided to go completely remote. So we are scattered really across the Northeast and Atlantic. We are a full service economic development firm. So we focus on anything from downtown market analysis, like we're going to be talking about today, to economic impact analysis, to grant writing, grant administration, real estate. We cover it all. But our work with Ticonderoga, is something that Camoin really started out doing, working across New York State. So we're excited to talk a little bit to our Vermont crowd and Connecticut and Maine and everyone that has joined us today to really dive into sort of the mechanics of, downtown revitalization from concept to execution. How do we, define what the market is and then bring that market to downtowns and create, spaces we all want to visit and live in, recreate in, and go and visit. So that's just a little bit about Camoin. I've got our website is there, and we've got lots of profiles of different projects that we've done, and feel free to check those out and see if any of that is relevant to the folks we've got on the call. Donna, I'll let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work with the TI Alliance.
Sure. I'm Donna Wotton with the Ticonderoga Revitalization Alliance, that we refer to as TI Alliance because the rest of it is a mouthful. Our organization is a local development corporation for the town of Ticonderoga. And we're focused on helping to plan for Ticonderoga development. And we live in a mill town here, so that's can be challenging at times and has lots of issues that we'll talk about in a minute. But we're really focused on two things. One is creating a environment across a lot of different topics, from workforce development to downtown development and business development, that we can work on all at the same time to lift together and create a significant critical mass to sustainable development. So we really look at this whole picture holistically. So today we're going to focus on the downtown development part of that we worked with Alex on, but we have a number of other initiatives, especially in trade education and some things like that, that if people are interested in, they can go to our website for.
Great. So I know we've got people from different jurisdictions today, so this is going to focus a little bit on New York State resources, but I do think a lot of these things apply, sort of the concepts across, multiple states. And I think, if there's one goal from today, we really want to demonstrate how the right data, whether that's quantitative or qualitative, how the right tools can really help market a community, how it can leverage investment funding dollars, and really make the case for why your downtown or your community is prepared to grow and have economic potential. So, Donna, maybe if you could just set the scene a little bit to the lead up for the market analysis, sort of a little bit about Ticonderoga and why now was the right time to sort of embark on this market analysis and what you hoped would come out of it at the end of the process.
Sure. We're a town of 5,000 people here in Ticonderoga, but Ticonderoga also serves as the main commercial area for 3 other towns that border it to the southwest, southeast, and to the north. And those are Hague, Crown Point, and Putnam. So we're really looking, and those towns have a much smaller population. So the total population that we're serving is about 7,000 people. We do have an international paper mill here that employs 600 people. We have expanding healthcare facilities with a hospital that just has basically an ER, and which partners with a adult nursing home and a primary care practice. They're building all of those things to be more robust. So that's a growing field here in our area. Our other largest employers are Fort Ticonderoga, which has a large seasonal staff, but about 30 people year-round. And of course, our school is one of our major employers. The economic challenges here are something that will ring true for all of you, I'm sure. We have an aging population and an aging workforce. For quite some time, we've been sort of exporting our college graduates, and our non-college bound students are relatively unskilled or underskilled. Our biggest industry, of course, is tourism. We live in a beautiful place, and it's a wonderful place to live. We have 2 beautiful lakes, but we don't utilize that as a tourist draw as much as we could. And then for our downtown, the mill used to be downtown. They pulled out and went to the north of town. They're still in Ticonderoga, but it's a new, more automated plant that got built back in the 80s. And our workforce there went from several thousand employees down to 500 or 600, I think they have now. And so when that happened, in the interest of economic expansion, we had the foresight to build sort of a 4 corners area outside of town, about a mile down the road, and a bypass of downtown to get to it. And that killed a lot of the traffic downtown. And when Walmart came into that 4 corners area, it really destroyed a lot of the buildings that were downtown. So I'm sure many of you have sort of similar profiles of your town. So, we've had a lot of analyses done of downtown over the last the last 20 years, but nothing for about the last 10 years. And we really felt that data, although, if you look at the data from 10 years ago and even 20 years ago, it hasn't changed much. What has changed is sort of the subtleties of it. And we really felt that we needed an update on that from the perspective of sort of what the world was a year ago before COVID, and even the impact of COVID and what that's going to have going forward. So we have 3 buildings downtown that are vacant, among 8 that are vacant. And we really wanted to see if we could do 2 things. One is find businesses and reuse strategies for those 3 buildings, and then get an overall complexion of where we should be going for our downtown with some new data.
Great. So yeah, it sounds like the way that Ticonderoga would be able to position itself best required new interpretation and some new data, certainly that we brought in from COVID related impacts. But for you to do your job and to work with the town and the other organizations downtown, that really setting the stage and presenting the opportunity for Ticonderoga was at the top of your mind.
Yeah, really getting a good handle on where we are now, where we can go, and also getting the data that we needed to be able to look for funding to help us.
Yes, the ever important quest for funding. Okay, so planning ahead. You talked a little bit about what you were looking at. So you've got these 3 buildings. Maybe we could skip ahead here. And why in particular were these 3 buildings sort of top of your list to do both the market analysis and the building reuse analysis?
Yeah, so these 3 buildings represent sort of 3 different things in our community. They're all 3 within a 2-block space of each other. You see the Agway building on your upper left-hand side there. It's on the historic registry. It's a beautiful, beautiful building in grave disrepair. And it's one of the buildings as you come down into Ticonderoga, into our downtown area. It's really a high-profile building on one side of the street. So we would really, before this gets too bad, we really want to be able to save it. And that's going to take some historic preservation money. We're going to need some data, and we really needed to have a plan and some architectural drawings and a strategy for how to be able to renovate. That's going to be about a $2 million project. So that needs a long-term plan. The building in the middle is a small 2,000 square foot space that's right in the smack center of our downtown block. Used to be a jewelry store and has been empty for 4 or 5 years since they sold it. We have a very willing owner for that building who has invested in it just for their contribution to our community. And it's ready for a new occupant. And we needed some ideas as to what would be a good business to be sustainable there for the long term. And then the other thing with that building is it had the ability to maybe be something like food service and stuff. And you'll see, I think later we talk about being able to initiate some zoning conversations based on the plan for that building. So that was another strategy there with that building. And then the third building in your bottom right-hand corner is another building at the entry point of our downtown blocks. And you see the side of it is a billboard waiting to happen, big blank space there. And additionally, you can't really see out the back side of it here, but it faces the river, and our riverfront that goes right through the back side of our downtown street here. We really have hopes in the future of being able to develop that to do a number of different things for especially summertime use with, beer gardens and things like that. There's a big park back there along the river that we hope to be building a performing arts center in. So that's an anchor on one end of that stretch of the backside of the street.
Great, yeah. So all of these properties really had transformative potential for downtown.
They really did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so just to back up a little bit on the technical piece of it for the funding source, can you just talk a little bit about sort of the process for applying for that and how that money came together in order to do the analysis?
Sure. One of the things that we have as an advantage here is we do have, with the building owners that you just saw and some other investors, we do have a lot of real estate that's been purchased downtown with private money, so that we could prepare for a major downtown renovation. So I want to acknowledge that we have these very willing investors, but there's only so much private money that they have. And we are definitely, with a project this big, going to need other public funding. So the other strategy here in terms of getting private funding is we really need, in New York State, you have to have some technical work done in order to be able to qualify for some of the actual money funding to do your projects. So this was a New York Main Street grant out of the Office of Housing and Community Resources. And it was a technical grant for $25,000, of which Tie Alliance provided $5,000 and Housing Community Renewal provided $20,000. So we commissioned a reuse study that we talked about, but normally those reuse studies are sort of strictly the architectural parts of things with a much smaller data component. And as we talked about, we were really interested in the data component here in order to do all of the work that we want to do downtown. So I really changed the priority on that a little bit and made sure that we had sort of a 50-50 focus on that. And then, so from a procedural standpoint, we started almost with the data. We had the Camoin team do their part of this first, while the architectural team was doing sort of initial drawings and documentation of the buildings. That way we could marry up when Camoin came back with their data and some recommendations for sustainable businesses, then we could choose the ones that we thought would be best married up to those three properties and marry that up together at the end. So the final aspect of that was on the architectural side to get an idea of what these three projects are going to cost. And since they have three different ranges to them of what we were trying to do, it gave us three different profiles that we could apply to other buildings in our town to get our arms around what some of those other projects might also cost.
Yeah, and this is just a few sort of snapshots from Insight Architecture's work. They were the firm that we collaborated with. And Donna, remind me, is this study public? It's on your website, correct?
It is, yeah. You can get it off of
Okay.
the landing page of our website. You can get links to it. And so
yeah, I would.
The building on the left here is the Agway, which really their recommendation was for a general store kind of facility in the front with a potential brew pub in the back and sort of bleeding into the front. The building is owned by a single individual here in these two sections, and the upstairs is designed to be for upscale apartments. And that's another goal of our downtown and our region, is to build good mid-level housing in our downtowns. So that's a regional priority that we're aligning with there, as well as our local ones. And then you can see on the right-hand side, this is the what was the Rathman building in the middle of our previous picture that shows outdoor dining, particularly in light of COVID, but also in light, even without COVID, you would have summertime when we would want to see some outdoor activity there. And that has enabled us to open up discussions about outdoor dining zoning issues in town. Incidentally, you know, we did open those discussions and with the town, and the town declined to go there, which was interesting. We were like, now, you know, this isn't going to be important. And they're like, you know what? We don't have an issue. We don't want to create an issue. if this comes about and you're dining outside and we have issues with that, then we'll look at it. We have other places in town now with COVID who all summer did have outdoor dining that they have not had before. And it went down without zoning and without issue. So we kind of thought that that was a really good idea. Let's not make it an issue. And if we have to have zoning eventually, we'll go there.
Making some decisions on the fly to make sure businesses are able to stay open and serve as many people as they can based on the current conditions.
Yeah, and don't make an issue out of something if it's not an issue yet.
It's interesting. So just a little bit more on Insight's work. So obviously they came up with these great visuals that, are helpful for really everyone to sort of, take a step back and see what could be, and whether that's the town or another downtown organization or potential investor, from the region that needs just a little bit of, visual to help see what could be. Their work also included, condition assessment on the interior, exterior, facade, structure, mechanical engineering, plumbing, that sort of work. So all of that went into the cost estimate, which eventually, either in this next round or other funding, Donna, that I think is going to be really useful for you to take to another funding source to say, we have a realistic cost estimate, and be able to go to other perhaps private funders, public, nonprofit, and say we've got the technical assistance to, show that this is viable if we have the right pieces in place.
Yeah, another thing, as you look at the building on the left-hand side here, there is a fair amount of trepidation on a lot of the local residents' parts that if you renovate these buildings, it's not going to have the same character. And that applies like even in the funding side of things and whatnot. So to actually have drawings like this that show a really great visualization of what this could look like, where it's so much the same building, it just brought up to date and nice, really helps people get their arms around the fact that even a lot of people they don't want any downtown renovation. We like it the way it is, kind of thing. And if you show them something like this, they go, "Oh yeah, that would be great." So it's really
hard
a
to say no to,
community
yeah.
building thing as well.
Absolutely. And another part of that conversation as well is the market analysis, which is what Camoin worked on to say, we have all these pretty pictures, but how do we make sure that a business is going to work in there? How do we make sure that, certain housing options are going to work in there? So having those two pieces together, like Donna said, was really important for them to go forward. And so some of the things that we brought out of the market analysis was two things. So identifying who the target consumer is. So whether that's day trippers, since sort of the regionalization of tourism was so big this summer that, 1 to 2 hour drive, really focusing on who that potential visitor is, the local senior population, retirees that are returning to Ticonderoga, groups that are visiting anchors in the region, so whether that's the fort or other destinations, outdoor enthusiasts, like Donna said, they're at the convergence of Lake George and Lake Champlain, so really some incredible landscapes. That sort of one side of thing, understanding who Ticonderoga has the potential to draw in as consumers. But then also on the other side of thing, we thought it was important to identify who would be the potential small businesses and entrepreneurs. Who can we identify as potential people to open businesses on the ground floor of the Agway building or of the Rathbun building? So we took a sort of different approach to that as well, looking sort of regionally at workforce, existing industry, and really identifying pockets of potential entrepreneurs that want to see their community grow, already have investment, or feel like a sense of community, and identifying sort of what the town and then what Donna's organization could do to attract those people as well. And I know, Donna, that you've had conversations with some folks, outdoor guides, I think it was, already, that I think hopefully the market analysis and the work that ISA did proved helpful to sort of make the case for Ticonderoga.
Yeah, what was different about the data that Camoin provided in this round of technical study was that in the past, we've really looked at the town as sort of strictly a tourist thing, strictly seasonal, and basically, shut down in the winter, except for the residents here, which they have not catered to really. So in the Camoin analysis, we really were glad to see the tourist documentation was great, but also the fact that, COVID really has changed its complexion to some extent, with a lot more closer local visitors to Ticonderoga. So those short drive kind of things, as well as the metro areas of New York, Boston, the Capital District, and Albany. But so we got an updated complexion on that, but we got another really important element, which was an update on the residential population, the year-round population. We are not interested in developing just a seasonal economy here. We have that, it's fine. We want a year-round economy. And in order to support that, we have to be able to target things that will be supported by the residents, that will draw residents downtown, and not just to Walmart, but to build a downtown that people want to live in and play in as residents year round, and as a place, do the placemaking that's attractive for visitors as well, and be able to do businesses, even tourist-based, that can have a year-round thriving business. So that year-round focus was really important to get out of this study.
Absolutely. All right, well, let me go to what's next then. So now you've got the market analysis, you've got the building reuse analysis in hand. Tell me about sort of next steps, about what you were able to do with that data. I know you've got some digital marketing things in the pipeline and that are already live, and anything else sort of on the horizon for Ticonderoga.
Yeah, we're actually really excited about this. It sort of came out of the whole study thing and was sort of part of this plan all the way around. If we're going to build this, we've got these buildings now that we're renovating or that have already been renovated with private, and now we're seeking some public money. But many of those are moving forward anyway, or they're ready. And we need to put those businesses into, and we also have a number of businesses around the Ticonderoga area that need succession. People are older and want to retire, and they're maybe into their 70s and 80s even, because they don't have the heart to shut it down when those businesses are so sorely needed in our area, but they don't have family members to take them over. So there's a program from the Adirondack North Country Association, ANCA, called the Center for Business Succession, basically. And we're sort of tagging along with that. And we have a website that we're just about to go live this week on, that will be in 5 different announcements, 5 different pages to it. The first is buying a business in Ticonderoga. So there you go. So the businesses for sale, the businesses to start, professional jobs. So the businesses to start is sort of the list of businesses that we've developed as a result of the Camoin study, as well as information that we could marry up to that, about what businesses could live year round here that we don't currently have and could be real game changers in our economy. For instance, if we had a transportation business here, people could, the train from New York and Albany comes straight through our town, and you can get off there at the station, and then you've got no way to get to anything else. So we need some transportation there, and that could be grab and go cars, grab and go bikes, trolleys, all kinds of things there. There's a business in transportation. There's business opportunities in restaurants. There's retail shops that are more sort of uniquely focused. That there's lots of different opportunities that we have identified here for year-round businesses. And Alex alluded to one that we are working on right now with someone, and that's we love living here. There are so many great things to do. We just don't have any way for anybody else to do them besides us. If you don't come here with your equipment and knowing what you're doing, we're going to be sending out the search party for you in the woods. So we need guides, and we need equipment, and we need people who want to take you out for a day's outing. So we are working with somebody to build that business right now, and that's one of our key targets for a year-round opportunity to help people come here and enjoy this area. So, all right, then the third thing is professional jobs. We have a lot of new jobs at the medical facilities. We have them in the schools. We have them at IP, but people have trouble finding them a little bit. So we want to entice people to come and do some of those jobs. And then there's the remote working portion of that too that will be built into that. Because lots of people are remote working here, and our broadband is getting better, and we have co-working space, things like that. And then last of all, if we're going to get these people to start these businesses and live and work here, they're going to need some housing. And we have a lot of high-end housing on our lakes with lakefront property, but people in the earlier parts of their careers are not likely to be able to afford those. And then we have a lot of HUD housing that we built because we do have a substantial amount of poverty here. So we need the housing in the mid-range that professionals would like to live in, either downtown as rental properties or as to purchase those homes. So that's going to be sort of a real estate section that will be live and updated all the time. So that's our website that we're building. It launches this week. It's called the Opportunity Page. And our first outreach on it is we've partnered with the Ticonderoga Alumni Association, which all of those other towns go to the Ticonderoga Central Schools. So we're getting about 3,000 of their alumni members that we're going to be reaching out to right away with newsletters and website and social media, to see if some of those people aren't ready with COVID, life-changing and whatnot, to come home and figure out how to live and work and thrive here in Ticonderoga again.
Donna, Lee has a question for you. Lee, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and just
see if I can make that happen? I've been typing away in I love these sessions because they always give me great ideas. I work at the Community College of Vermont in Brattleboro and Springfield, and we have some incredible opportunities here that we've partnered with BDCC and with some of the businesses to say, who are our feeders who can send young professionals and people who are in college and university who need internships or paid internships, not just an internship where it's free, but that employers are willing to invest. And then we've also had some very successful programs where we've said, take a few classes so that you're ready for the industry, but we will offer you a job once you've taken those courses so that you can do an apprentice type program as well. In the trade schools, I know trades anywhere in this region are begging for people to come and do that kind of work. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and just wondering if you're doing that. And then also, I've been very involved in this region with folks who are looking at the issue of affordable childcare along with affordable housing for young professionals. I think that that's key to people coming here and feeling like I could raise a family here.
That's very much in the businesses to start category for us. We do have some childcare here, but we definitely have a big shortage of it. So we're actually in discussion with one other person currently about a downtown childcare and affordable childcare, subsidized childcare facility there that would support some of the, residents of all economic strata, as well as visitors to town who could do drop out, if they were going out on a cross-country ski hike and they had little kids, they could drop them for the day and things like that. So childcare is very definitely on our list as well. But we have a whole program called Trade Education Access program that we're doing with the local high school, regional colleges. It has a scholarship program where we are basically mitigating any financial gap any student has to go to trade education, which is substantial. New York has the Excelsior program that's supposed to be able to provide full tuition for anybody who falls under a certain economic level. And there's many restrictions for it though. So a lot of kids, even though they may not have any income and qualify financially, some other way they don't qualify. We also don't have any trade colleges or education within like an hour and a half of us. We're in the middle of a region that has it to the north of us, to the south of us, and to the east of us, but we're kind of in no man's land here where we're an hour and a half for anything. It's not reasonable that these kids are going to commute to that. So, one advantage right now is that they are remote in most cases, but some of them still, with all the trade aspects of it, have to do hands-on labs still. So it's just, they have to live and work there. And that's another, $7,000 to $10,000 a year that they don't have to do that. So we're mitigating those expenses with our scholarship program. We also have something we call contractors in the classroom, which prior to COVID, we were actually taking contractors of various disciplines into a classroom that's our technology classes in the high school, and sharing with the kids how they came to be in that profession, which the stories are hysterical and the kids can really relate to them. They dropped out of high school and they dropped out of college, or, they were in trouble with the law or whatever their, crazy, they worked on oil rigs for a while, whatever their path was. These kids, that we're targeting for this, the kids who are not planning to go to college, really relate to the stories of these people. And then those people teach them a specific skill for a couple of days that are really kind of fun skills that go with their occupation. That program kind of went away with COVID because we couldn't bring anybody into the classrooms anymore. So we're revamping it right now and just about to kick off next month with a new version of it that we can put like 6 kids on a bus and take them somewhere and do visits at job sites for with social distancing. And there are all kinds of job sites, not just construction, but many other types of job sites, including like, the paper mill and things like that. Some medical sites, and all of the employers that we're working with there are really enthusiastic about it. They all have a deficit in their employment pipeline, and they're really excited to see if they can get these kids interested in what they do. And that has a companion internship paid internship program that goes with it as well. So we're just kicking that off this spring in its new format, and I think it's going to be really great in helping to connect these kids with something upon graduation.
I was just going to say one other thing. The reason I was drawn to this workshop is that it's data driven, but I think it's really important to keep in mind that data is not always quantitative, that qualitative is so important to the work that you're doing, and inspirational. And you find out things that you never would have found out before without, it's all about relationships. And that piece, I think, is again, what you're trying to draw to your community. So thank you for all of the great stuff that you've shared. It's wonderful.
You know, one of the things that I think is incredible about this community is, first of all, you'd have a hard time throwing a stone in this town and not hitting someone who is involved in some kind of community work of some sort. Pretty much everyone over the age of 60 is on the board of something, an active participant in Rotary or Kiwanis or the Knights of Columbus or whatever, you know, everything that you can possibly think of. Drug action groups, everybody's involved in something. It's really inspirational. And so there's a great deal of community activity all the time here. It's almost fashionable a little bit, you know, or it's not fashionable not to be involved in something, but the whole community of all ages is really involved a lot. So if you come up and to some extent, you know, sort of frustrated, if you come up with a program and you provide some leadership for it, we don't have any trouble getting people involved in it. Like the first time I went out for contractors in the classroom to get people involved in that, I was just like, oh boy, this is going to be like pulling teeth. Everybody's so busy. They don't have time to do this, right? They were so gracious and so generous. And every single one of those people came back to me and said, that was so much fun. And so now in this round, the word kind of got around for that. And in this round of it, everybody we've talked to said, absolutely, totally on board. I'll take an intern, you know, I'll do a presentation. You can come to my job site. You know, we're having trouble with the schedule. You know, the big thing is going to be the snowstorm that cancels an outing. Or there are some places where we can't go. So the teacher, Mike Uckel, is going to be taking those students on remotes. He's going to go with his phone and remote class lesson plans to them from job sites. So sometimes you have to get a little creative, but you know, but everybody's really having fun with it.
This has been great. I mean, I think we'll just open it now to any other questions, either specifically about Ticonderoga or the market analysis or sort of the whole approach. We could talk about this all day. So any other things that we can help the group with?
Yeah, please feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in with a question. Not everyone at once.
Well, so I do want to sort of emphasize that we, in addition to the Camoin study that we did, we also did one at Thai Alliance with a grad student a year ago to help identify, that was specifically targeted to our tourism focus, and what tourism businesses help to identify some of those things, like the outfitting company and the transportation company. But I find in my daily work that I'm constantly going back to both of those documents in almost everything that we do, and I'm adding to them. I sort of have my my data bank that I keep that includes like the numbers of students that are not matriculating to college, the numbers of you know, our database of all of the contractors and other business people that we're working with actively in the trade education program, the different investors in downtown and what their contributions are, because I need that information at my fingertips to be able, when I'm writing grants and stuff, to be able to document the private investment. So the data, all the data does is inform everything else that we do. So it gives me that that credibility and that basis when we're doing that.
There are a few questions that have popped up in the chat. Amy had asked, have bike lanes or other non-automotive forms of transportation factored into your planning?
We're not that far yet. And we had, we're pretty country roadish around here. There are some areas that have good bike lanes, like our main thoroughfare to the south, actually both sides to the south, and Route 22 that comes up the east side of Lake George and into Ticonderoga is part of the Empire State Trail, bike trail. So that is pretty fully bike laned. And coming up the other side of Lake George into Ticonderoga is as well. So not every place, but we have a lot in place just already. And it definitely will be part of planning the future. We're just trying to sort of get anything started here first, sort of in that area. And we are taking advantage of the Empire State Trail coming through town. We just, it doesn't have a lot of facility about it at this point, but we hope to be expanding that.
Great. Jen, you have a question?
Yeah, Donna, you were sort of one topic back. We're starting to get at this. You were talking about some of the data that you're now collecting on investments and things like that. If you had like a wish list of like the next study or the next 3 studies or the next like kind of data projects that you'd love if somebody just threw whatever amount of money at you, like what do you want to know next? What do you feel like are the big questions?
We have two big buildings in downtown that are going to need that before they move forward. One is that Agway building that you saw. We need a very detailed cost structure on that building. The one that we have is pretty general and ballpark, and we need to have stuff that we can like have people quoting that work, and then to get funding to do that work. That's going to take some preservation money, and that's really hard to get, and it requires you to do very deep technical work before you're ready for that. So that's the first one. We have another building called the Cobbler's Bench, which is going in development now as a boutique hotel, sort of like the Latches in Brattleboro, an old department store that's going to be renovated. It's got a great group of investors to it, and they've just been through the first rounds of structuring to monetize tax credits and that type of thing. They're ready to move forward, and that needs a detailed technical analysis as well. So those are my 2 biggies right now. And then the third one is that Performing Arts Center that's in the back of our minds here. We have some preliminary drawings on that, but in order to move that forward, and the town's really enthusiastic about that one too. That would also house our farmers market and a couple of other things. It would make the farmers market a year-round operation and some of those things. So, so those 3 are on my list.
Great, thank you. Lee had mentioned in the chat, or had asked in the chat, do you have any businesses that are on board with supporting childcare for their employees and see it as a critical path of drawing folks to your region?
I would say not at this time. I probably need a partner in that. I haven't been here long enough to really get that deep into it yet. I just have other priorities right now, but yeah, I could use a partner in that.
Great.
But that's something that like maybe IP, would be a partner in that. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you sort of raised that. I have a meeting tomorrow with the HR person at IP, and I might bring that up.
There you go. I just want to be mindful of the time. It is 12:55. So are there any last questions before we all head our separate ways? I did share their email addresses. There you go. If you do sort of have other questions that come up, and I will send the recording of this out to everyone that attended, and it can also be on our you can find it on our website. So, all right, I think that's it.
Great, love it. If anybody wants to talk more about stuff, just reach out. I'd love to talk about this stuff all day long. And Brattleboro, I have to tell you, was one of my first outings. When I first started doing this a couple of years ago, I came from a completely different industry and needed to educate myself in economic development. And I have a friend who lives down in Brattleboro. I don't know if you know the Abels, but Marion and Peter Abel live down there. And Marion said, you gotta come down here. I'll show you some economic development. And everybody that I talked to down there was incredibly gracious and helpful. And that was really at an early time when I had no idea what I was doing. And it was really, really helpful. So thank you to your economic development community down there for helping me out.
Wonderful. That's great to hear.
You're my poster children for what I'd like to accomplish in time.
We'll take it. We'll take it. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Donna.
everyone.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure. Bye.
Bye.